not a Hasidic guy, you know. He's a,
He's rough. I don't think he's.
Masechta Shabbos. On the top, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Afanan Amitanina, because Rabbi Yehuda said that an androgynous, you do a milah for an androgynous, but we brought a number of proofs that in other places in Shas, Rabbi Yehuda does not hold that an androgynous has an obvious status of a male. Afanan Amitanina, Kol Kshem Lakadesh. Everyone can give kiddushin chutz micheres shoyte v'kotten. These people have no das, and therefore their kinyans are not good kinyans. But Rav Yehuda Machshir b'kotten, he allows a kotten. But poisel b'ishuv androgynous, a woman cannot give kiddushin, and an androgynous cannot give kiddushin. So you see clearly, he doesn't always paskin that an androgynous has the status of a vaday male. Shmami no. Okay, it's a good proof. Ma'ishna mila. So then, why did he say that there's a chiyuv mila by an androgynous? Mishum d'chsiv hi molachem kol zachar. The kol is kol zachar is any kind of zachar. And since he has a shtickle, he has some male genitalia. He's considered, he falls into the category of kol zachar, and therefore you do mila to the androgynous. Mishnah. There are two children in front of the moya. Echad lamul achar Shabbos. One child is 7 days old, so his 8th day would have been Sunday. The echad lamul b'Shabbos. And one child needs mila, was born last Shabbos, and this is his 8th day. So he had permission to do mila of that child. However, shochach umal eshel achra Shabbos b'Shabbos. He made mila for the one that was only on 7 days old. So chayiv chatas. So he did a malacha, and he didn't do the mitzvah. He was taught b'dvar mitzvah, but no mitzvah was accomplished.
So Ernie, what happens to the baby if the baby is malad on the 7th day?
He needs a hatofis dam bris because the mitzvah of mila was not done.
Oh wow.
So what do we have to do? Draw blood?
Yep.
Oy. All right.
So, l'chora, there's no machlokes because no mitzvah was done. But echad lamu be'erev Shabbos ve'echad lamu b'Shabbos. There was a 9-day-old child. That means there was a child that was supposed to be gemalt on Friday, and they didn't mal him. And there was a child supposed to be gemalt Shabbos. V'shochach u'mala shel erev Shabbos b'Shabbos. So Rabbi Eliezer mechayev chatas. Rabbi Eliezer says it doesn't make a difference because it was a mila shelo bizman. That's not doich Shabbos. And even though he made a mistake with dvar mitzvah, if he was busy in the mitzvah that he was supposed to do, he made a mistake. Doesn't make a difference. Since he did a malacha, we don't care about that he was toward the mitzvah. Even though toward dvar mitzvah, also mitzvah sheyesh b'chiv chatas chayev chatas. But Rabbi Yeshua pointed. Rabbi Yeshua holds if you're toya b'dvar mitzvah, he is permitted to do mila on the child that was an 8-day-old child. So he got mixed up. So he holds if you ended up performing a mitzvah, now there you did a mitzvah because it should have been maled yesterday. So once it hits 8 days, you perform a mitzvah when you mal it. So when you maled it on Shabbos, you did a mitzvah. So according to Rabbi Yeshua, you're potter from a chayiv chatas because the mitzvah was performed. In the Reisha, when they come out a 7-day-old child and no mitzvah was performed, even Rabbi Yeshua will be moideh that even if you're Torah b'dvar mitzvah, you'd be chayiv chatas because no mitzvah was accomplished by when you mal the 7-day-old. That's this Mishnah. It's a famous sugi in Shas that's debated in many places because it's brought in this issue of Torah b'dvar mitzvah. Now, Rav Huni Masda Chayiv, Rav Huna learned that in the Reisha it was chayiv, but Rav Yehuda Masni potter. What's this? Rav Huna Masni chayiv the Tanya. This is his version. Amar Sheben Elazar loy nechlik Rav Yezer Rav Yoshua al misha haylo shtei tinokos. There's no machlokes when there's two children. Echad lamu b'Shabbos ve'echad lamu lachar Shabbos. It was a 7-day-old child. B'shachach u'mala shalachar Shabbos b'Shabbos. They gemaled the 7-day-old child on Shabbos Shuchai, because no mitzvah was accomplished. And even Rabbi Yoshua will be moida that even it was torud b'mitzvah of milah because there was a child available to be gemaled, but you ended up doing an act where mitzvah wasn't performed, so you're chayav chatas. Al manech l'kol mishari lo shtei tinokos. The machlokas is where they had two children. Echad lamu b'erev Shabbos ve'echad lamu b'Shabbos. It was a 9-day-old child and an 8-day-old child, and they b'shachach u'mala shel erev Shabbos b'Shabbos. They did the meal on the 9-day-old child on Shabbos, which they're not allowed to do because it's not doiches Shabbos. But a mitzvah was performed. Shrav Eliezer mechayev chatas because he doesn't care. You did an act that you were not supposed to do, even though a mitzvah was performed. You're still chayev chatas. Rabbi Yoshua pointer. Rabbi Yoshua says, since in that case a mitzvah was enacted, because a 9-day-old, when you do the milah, there's a mitzvah performed. There's no chayev chatas. Ushneim lo lamdu elam avodas kechavim. Both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua learn from Avodah Zarah, because by Avodah Zarah it says, Torah achas yelahem ha'oseh bishkaga. So we learn all of the dinim of chiyuv chatas from Avodah Zarah. Rabbi Eliezer savar kavod kechavim. Ma'avodas kechavim am rachman lo to'aved v'chi aved mechayev. You're not allowed to do the acts of Avodah Zarah. So basically, you can't shecht in front of the Avodah Zarah. You can't bow down to the Avodah Zarah. You can't do zrika to the Avodah Zarah. And if you did it, the chiyavid chayiv. We don't care when a mitzvah was performed, mitzvah was not performed. If the act was carried out, you're chayiv chayiv. Hachinami lo shna. So here in these cases, whether you did it, the mitzvah was performed, was not performed, you made a wound, shalol tzarech, when you weren't supposed to do it, you're chayiv, like the case of Avodah Zarah. However, Rabbi Yeshua says, no, hasav de lav mitzvah. Thereby, Avodah Zarah, there's no mitzvah being performed. Hacha mitzvah. Here, when you have the two children, one of them was supposed to be gemalt on Shabbos, so he's Torah b'mitzvah. So when you're Torah b'mitzvah, you would be potter, even no matter if you at least performed a mitzvah. Even according to Rabbi Yoshua, if the mitzvah was not performed, like you gemalt the 7-day-old child, you would also be chai. Now, that's the way Rav Huna learned. Rav Yehuda Masni potter. Rav Yehuda had a brisa that emphasized the patur. The Tanya on Rav Meir. There's no machloikas between these two tanoim when you have two children. One was a 9-day-old child, one was an 8-day-old child. You gemalt the 9-day-old child on Shabbos. Shehu potter. This version has Rabbi Eliezer even agreeing that when you perform a mitzvah, because on a 9-day-old child you perform a mitzvah, then you wouldn't be chayav chatas, because Torah b'mitzvah, and you made a mitzvah, you are not chayav. One was a 7-day-old child, because he was supposed to be gemalt on Sunday, and one that was supposed to be gemalt on Shabbos. They did the meal on the 7-day-old child. Rabbi Yeshua pointer. Rabbi Yeshua, in this case, potters even in a case where the mitzvah was not enacted, because when you mal a 7-day-old child, you didn't do anything. There's no mitzvah performed, because it hadn't reached the stage 8 days where it's royal mitzvah. Ushneim Olam Dulam Avodas Kechavi. They learn it from Avodah Zarah. Rabbi Yezer said, we don't care what the circumstances are. If you did the act, you're chayiv achanami loshna. But Rabbi Yeshua also loy toward mitzvah. When you're worshiping Avodah Zarah, there's no mitzvah that you're involved in. Hacha toward mitzvah. Here there was a mitzvah. So the Rambam says, somebody has two children, and you have an 8-day-old and a 9-day-old, or an 8-day-old and a 7-day-old, and you mauled both of them, potter. You're potter on both studies. Since you had rishus to maul one of the children, Shabbos is the chuya etzlo, and we'll see some support to the Rambam from later on in the Gemara. Tony Rab Chia, Oimrai Rab Meir, Loy Nechlech Rabbi as Rabbi Yeshua Mishai Lo Shtei Tinoikos. There's no machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua when they had two children. Echad Lamol Be'erev Shabbos, Echad Lamol B'Shabbos, a 9-day-old child and an 8-day-old child. V'Shachach U'Mal Shalev Shabbos B'Shabbos, they mauled the 9-day-old child. Shehu Chayev, even Rabbi Yeshua will make you chayev even though you did a mitzvah there. A 7-day-old and an 8-day-old. They mauled the 7-day-old. So I don't understand, says the Gemara. Rabbi Yeshua Seifa, the loiko ovid mitzvah poiter. If Rabbi Yeshua says even when you mauled the 7-day-old, where no mitzvah was accomplished, poiter reisha ovid mitzvah machayev, how could you say that Rabbi Yoshua would hold that in the Reisha, where they mauled a 9-day-old and a mitzvah was performed, he would be chayav? Can't be. So, Amri Devei Rabbi Yanai explains Reisha. You know why it's chayav there? Because they ended up mauling both of the children, and they mauled the Shabbos one first. In fact, they did a double switch. They mauled the 8-day-old child on Friday, and they mauled the 9-day-old on Shabbos. So there was no heter at all. The Loinit Shabbos Litchos, because they didn't have an 8-day-old child on Shabbos. There was no tir to the mitzvah. So that's why there, even Rabbi Yoshua holds your chai. But Seifa, where there's an 8-day-old child, in the Shabbos Litchos, that's why there's enough to meet. That's why there you're potter called Rabbi Yoshua. Omelei Ravash Rav Kana Reisha Nami Nitne Shabbos Litchos Legabe Tinoikas to Alma. Yeah, but why don't you say in the Reisha Shabbos in general? There are other children around the world that Shabbos is given over to be nitche for an 8-day-old Mila. Yeah, says the Gemara, but for this particular child, it wasn't nitche. And in order to have dichoy, you need a special child in front of you for you to be toward the mitzvah. Can't be just ba'alma nitne Shabbos litchos.
What do you do if the guy gets mixed up? Before he does, he can ask you a shaila. I have a child that's supposed to be mal on Shabbos and one on Sunday. They get mixed up. Do we do it? What do? We wait till Sunday for both of them?
Say that. I didn't understand your question.
You have two
I didn't
children.
understand your question.
You have two children.
I didn't hear the question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
If you have two children, one is to be mal on Shabbos and one is Sunday. If they get mixed up, you don't know which is which.
So you certainly wouldn't mal on Shabbos. If it's a suffix, you would push it off to day 9. Absolutely.
Both of them.
Well, one is supposed to be maled on Sunday.
Right. So you push off to both of them till the Sunday.
So the Shabbos one, you certainly, if you don't know which one it is, you wouldn't mal it on Shabbos.
Okay.
That's clear. That's a suffix. Now, this is a very important Mishnah. Kot nimo l'shmone, l'tisha, la'asara, la'chadasar, l'shteimasar. We're talking about a regular child, not a mistake, and not a regular child, not sick. We know if the child is sick, it's pushed up, but this is not talking about a sick child. that it could be gemalt on a day 8, day 9, day 10, day 11, day 12. What's this? Lo pochas v'lo yosef. From a halacha standpoint, just based on halacha, it's either going to be day 8 and it can't be longer than day 12. Period. 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12. That couldn't be anything else. Now, of course, if a child is sick, there's no rule there. You got to wait until the child is healed. But la halacha, you could only have these dates. Haketza. How does that work? Kedar kol lishmona. So a regular child born on a regular day is gemalt on the 8th day. However, let's say nola the ben hashmot. Let's say Tuesday ben hashmoshes. Right? You have a period between, let's say, 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. after Shkia and before Tzeisa Koichadim. That's called ben hashmoshes. So we don't know. It's Suffolk Yom, Suffolk Laila. Maybe it's still Tuesday. Maybe it's Wednesday. So any child born ben hashmoshes, nimo latisha, we don't mal it 8 days from now because maybe it's only 7 days. Because maybe it wasn't gemalt on Tuesday. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was born on Wednesday. So you always wait until the 9th day to mal ben hashmoshes. Then ben hashmoshes shel erev Shabbos nimo lasara. Now, if a child is born Friday between 7 and 8 o'clock, so we don't know whether it was born Friday, we don't know whether it was born Shabbos. So you can't mal it next Friday because maybe it was born Shabbos. You can't mal it next Shabbos because maybe it was born Friday and it's not Doicha Shabbos. So you always mal it on Sunday. That's why many brisim are on Sunday naturally because of this din of born ben hashmoshes Friday afternoon. Now, Yom Tov la'achar Shabbos nimo la'chanasar. Now, if Yom Tif, let's say Pesach starts on Sunday, Saturday night, and a child was born the previous ben hashmoshes Friday, so you can't wait. You can't mal it on Sunday, just like it's not Doicha Shabbos, it's not Doicha Yom Tif. You have to wait till Monday, which is day 11. And what if Sunday and Monday was Rosh Hashanah, right? Shnei Yomim shel Rosh Hashanah, nimo l'shnei masar. You'd have to wait until Tuesday, which is day 12. Period. Then, kot nachoyle, ein moel noisoy ad sheyavri. If a child is sick, you have to wait until it heals. We'll see what that is. Omer Shmuel chaltzos uchama. Once his fever breaks, noisten loy kol shiva lavroy. So you have to wait 7 days until he heals, and only then do the milah. Now, gentlemen, let's say a child is born Monday at noontime. The next Monday, when we do the milah, we do it at 7 o'clock in the morning. We don't do it, me'es le'es means 24. We don't have to wait 7 24-hour periods and wait to do the milah until mamish 8 24-hour periods from when he was born. No, we have a concept of miktzah sayom kukulo, and we mal even it might be 6 24-hour periods and maybe 10 hours because miktzah sayom kukulo. However, the Gemara is asking the question: if a child is sick and his fever broke noontime on Monday, when we do the milah, we waited 7 days. You have to wait until Sunday at noontime to do the milah, 7 days after he got better. Mamish full 7 24-hour sessions. Or can you already do it in the morning? You don't have to wait 24 hours. The day of healing is like the day of birth. My love yom, my yom ivaldo lo b'yamei just like milah from the day of birth. You don't need 24 hours. Af yom avraso lo b'yamei slaves. More says low. Odiv, it's more stringent. Yom avraso yom ivaldo. waiting 7 days after healing is more stringent than day of birth. Ilu yomi baldo lo be'inim me'es leis, v'ili yom avraso be'inim me'es leis. And the Shulchan Aruch paskins, you wait me'es leis. So let's say you wanted to malam exactly 7 days after he healed, you wouldn't be able to, if he healed, let's say if his fever broke noontime on a Monday, you would do it on Sunday at noontime, only after you couldn't do it Sunday morning. Because you'd need full 7 24-hour periods. Mishnah. So if you leave skin fragments over after the mila that cover the corona or the parts of the glands, so the mila is puzzle, and you haven't completed the mila. It has to go back and be removed. What is it? Tzitzna ma'akvin? Basra choipes rovatar. Flesh that is covering the majority of the corona, more than 50%. Then we're going to see a sheet in the Gemara. So that we would think would be, we're talking about the circumference of the corona. But then there's a sheet that says even up and down, vertical, longitudinal on the corona, if going up towards the meatus through which you urinate through, if there's skin more than 50%, even in one strip area, covering the glands, then that would be a tzitzna ma'ak. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Even one place. But if there's a little bit, it's not covering the majority of the Torah, it's not ma'akeh b'di'evet. You still, lechatchila, you should do it the right way, but b'di'evet is not considered an orah. If someone has these tzitzna ma'akvin and he's a kohen, eina ochel truma. V'imaya bal basar metaknu l'nei marasai. And if he happens to be a chubby kid, and remember, the penis is like an iceberg, right? The Titanic hit an iceberg. 10% of the penis, 10% of the iceberg you see above the ocean, 90% is below. Well, it's the same thing with the penis. What the penis that you see, there's a lot of corpora cavernosa that's inside that goes all the way down to the ischial tuberosity, your pelvic bone. So there are a lot. If you take someone who's a little overweight, so you'll see that the penis can invaginate into the skin of what's called the mons pubis. So this whole concept of penile enlargement, it's no such thing. It's a misnomer. It's just an optical illusion. It looks smaller because some of the penis is invaginating into the fatty tissue of the mons pubis. And if you just straighten out your mons pubis, you'll see the normal phallic length. So there are children that you'll have a circumcision, says the Mishnah, and it'll look like the skin is the corona is being covered by the fat. You have to fix it, he says, with a marasai. Otherwise, it looks like you're an aura. There's a problem when we do adult circumcisions in overweight people. You got to be very careful. Cosmetically, it's going to look very short, and you have to explain to them what it's going to be because sometimes the foreskin itself makes it look like they've got more of a penis. It's not the penile structure, it's the skin covering it. So the Mishnah is sort of understanding this. Now, the only difference is you have to do an erection test. And you can do an erection test in a child too. You can put a little needle in it and inflate it if you need in the operating room. So if at the time of erection, he looks circumcised, and you don't have to do anything. But if not, you have to correct it surgically. Nu halacha, mal v'loy paras amila. So the foreskin has an outer skin that has an inner skin. And the inner skin comes and reflects up onto the corona. So if you just cut the foreskin, stretch the foreskin and cut it, you still have to peel back that sort of membrane that covers the corona. That's called priya. And mal v'lo paras amila kila lo mal. If you haven't revealed the corona, you haven't completed the circumcision. It's not just the circumference, but it's also, even in one place, as I told you, going up on the glands, the height. If it's more than 50%, if there's some skin there that's covering the corona, that would be a tzitz ma'akfi. If the child is, or the adult, and you do a circumcision and it looks like this skin is covering the corona, you got to correct it. Amar Shmuel, a chubby kid. If he gets an erection and you see that he looks circumcised because it extends beyond the body and beyond that fatty tissue, and it's uncovered, and it's tzarich lomu. But the imlav tzarich mo, he has to go back and take more skin. The same halacha, if a fatty, chubby child, if at the time of erection he doesn't appear to be circumcised, might be now. It could be not near vein near. For example, if it's a suffix, you see it sometimes. The other time you don't see it. And then, if it's a suffix, according to one approach, you would need it, the extra surgery. The other approach, you would not need it. That's the nafkamina between the two sheets. Mal v'loy para. By the way, those of us, I think it's all of us, who are in the Navi Shir, the source for Priya, we learned it, it's in Perek Hey, Pasuk Beis. Ba'esahi, Amra Hashem Yoshu Aselecha Chavot Tzurim, Vishuv Molas Bnei Yisrael Shenis. Go ahead and do the Mila again. So Yevomis Ayin Aleph says, Lo nitna priya mila lavrom avinu shenema ba'esahi Amra Hashem Yoshu Aselecha Chavot Tzurim. The mitzvah of priya was given to Yoshua. So, and I think we learned some of the drushes there about that. Malv'loy paraton rabbanon hamal oimer. What about the brachas by Mila? The Moel says Asher Kedesham Yisrael V'Tzivanu Ala Mila. And the Avia ben Omer, the father says Asher Kedesham Yisrael V'Tzivanu Lachniso B'Vriso Shalav Rabim. The Ondim Sham, right? The people who are around say, Kishem Shenichnas Labris, Kachi Konis L'Torah Chupul Masim Tovim. So this is a Beferishtik Gemara. This is not the Anshe Knesset Agdola who established it in the Siddur. No, this is a Gemara. The brachas are lifted from the Gemara. And what we say during the second bracha, when we name the child, the Elokeinu Kevuseinu, this Kishem Shenichnas Labris is an exact quote from the Gemara. Then it says, V'amevarechom, and then someone is given the honor of making a bracha there, like we do. We have two brachas. The first bracha is Asher Kidesh Yedid Mi Beten, Chok B'Sheros Sam. He put a chok in the she'er, which is referring to the Mila. V'tzetzav Chasam B'os Bris Kodesh. He sort of sealed his covenant in a holy bris in his grandchildren. Al Kain B'Schar Zos. Kel Chai Chel Kenu Tziva Lotzil Yedidut Sheirenu Mishachas Leman Briso Shesham B'Vsarenu Brachato Hashem Kores Abris. That's the first bracha. The nusach of Elokeinu V'Kevoseinu is not in the Gemara. It's only the Kiddush you did me beten nusach is here. The only part of the Elokeinu V'Kevoseinu that's in the Gemara is the Kashem Shenichlas Lebris. It's not the Hodu Lashem Kitol. Those are psukim that have been added later on. Okay, how about Hamalas Agerim? Right, if a ger that Bezdin is going to oversee his Mila, I have the schus to do Mila on a number of converts. These were done under anesthesia at the hospital or at the surgery center. So the one who does the Mila says, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddusham mitzvot tzivenu ala Mila. And the second bracha that is made, where you don't say, Lachniso b'vrisa shel Avram Avinu, you say, asher kiddusham mitzvot tzivenu la molos hageri. Or, if you're not doing a bris, but you're just taking some blood, you say, Lahativ Meru Dam Bris. She ilmoli Dam Bris lo niskaimu shamayim v'aretz. Without Dam Bris, there would be no shamayim v'aretz shnema in lo varisi yomam v'layla chuko shamayim v'aretz lo samti. Baruch Atah Hashem korei sabris. That's all the nusach of the bracha. Now, there's one more category of people that we do Mila on, which is an Eved Knani that you buy. And when he comes into your house, you do Mila and you do Tefillah, but that the Tefillah is L'Shem Avdus, not L'Shem Gerus. Therefore, while he's living in your house, he keeps mitzvahs like an Isha. That's why we say Noshim Avodim Uktan. Because so an Eved Knani, for example, does not Mekayim mitzvah saseh shazman grama, like an Isha. But you have to mal him. Then later on, if you give him a get shichrur, he needs tvila l'shem gerus, and that's how, and he gets a get shichrur, and that's how he becomes a Jew. I don't believe they require hatafas dam bris later on, because this Mila sort of covers it. And if it was an act of hatafas dam bris, you would say la'ataf b'menu dam bris. Shel moli dam bris chuko shemayim v'aretz lo niskam u'shneimar lo vrisi yomam v'layla chuko shemayim v'aretz lo savdi baruch Atah Hashem korei sabris. Harlach Rabbi de Mila, Harlach Rabbi de Mila, Harlach Rabbi de Mila. The beautiful, beautiful parak, really beautiful parak. New parak, the 20th parak, parak Esrim, parak Toilin, Kuf Lamed Zayin Amid Beis, Mishnah. Rabbi Yezer Omer Toilin is Amishameres B'Yontif. They used to hang a sack, and then they would pour wine through the sack. The sediments would be collected in the sack. They would sort of stuff, they would create this like tent process above the bottle or the barrel. Whatever flowed into the barrel was good wine. And there's a problem, like you're making a ohel over the space of a kli. So Rabbi Yezer says it's okay on Yontif because we have certain heterim for oichel nefesh.
Ernie, that's what it looked like. Ernie.
There you go. Nice picture. Okay. The Neusnin. Now, you could not extend one of these things on Shabbos, because then you're building an oil. It's Isser Binyan. However, if this thing had been hung from Erev Shabbos, Neusnin l'tluya b'Shabbos, you could pour the wine through it. What about boirer? So we'll deal with that. But But if it's tluya, you can pour the wine on Shabbos. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. Chachamim are more stringent. If they don't allow you to suspend this thing on Yontif lechatchila, and even if it had been suspended from Erev Shabbos, you would not allow to pour wine into that thing. If you prepared this thing from Erev Yontif, you could pour the wine in it on Yontif. That's what the Mishnah says. So the Gemara analysis is Hashta Rabbi Eliezer oisifi oil aray lo musfinon. He doesn't allow you on Shabbos to add this temporary oil. Oh no. We said that you can hang this thing on Yontif, but the Gemara is going to bring a proof that you can't even add to a temporary oil. How can you tell Rabbi Eliezer allows you to do it lechatchila? What is this? This is a Mishnah we had before. It's not. Kakachalon. Remember, we had a window and it had a shutter, and it depended whether the shutter was connected with a string, whether you could shutter the window with it or not. So Rabbi Eliezer if it was tied and suspended, you can do. Chachamim allowed you to do it. So we see from here that Rabbi Eliezer did not allow you to add this kakachalon to something suspended already. You cannot make a temporary oil on Yontif, and certainly not on Shabbos. Let's say you had a temporary tent. Can you add to it? You can't add to it, and certainly not on Shabbos. So here's evidence that Rabbi Eliezer is the more stringent guy regarding temporary tents. If you can't even add on Yontif, how can you be toilet this thing lechatchila on Yontif? That's the Gemara's kasha. So Rabbi Eliezer served like Rabbi Yehuda, because he holds like Rabbi Yehuda the Tanya. Ein ben Yontif l'Shabbos elo oichel nefesh b'lvad. That there's no difference in halachas of Yontif and Shabbos except oichel nefesh. And Rabbi Yehuda matir machshire oichel nefesh. And Rabbi Yehuda permits you even preparatory steps. So the Gemara says Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rabbi Yehuda that this preparatory step regarding oichel nefesh is permitted on Yontif. So when did Rabbi Yehuda say you're allowed to do machshirin on Yontif? Something that you couldn't do erev Yontif. So we already learned, like baking bread was very important to them. So chas v'shom, you should bake bread fried, erev Yontif. No, they mastered you to do whatever you needed, because if it's not fresh, to make it fresh, they allowed you to do even the machshirim on Yontif itself. Something that makes no difference, and you do it erev Yontif, you can do it erev Yontif. So that's what the Gemara's point. But this thing, but this thing for pouring wine through it, that could have been set up. There's no difference whether you do it today or mamish erev Yontif. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer had different Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Eliezer is more lenient than Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda wouldn't allow you to do, but Rabbi Eliezer for oichel nefesh would allow you to do something even on Yontif itself, even if you could do it erev Yontif. Shulchan Aruch says, or Ein toilen umoitchinas hamishmer shemasanim bo sayayim minashmar filu b'Yontif. You're not allowed to do it on Yontif, and certainly not on Shabbos. That means to suspend it, and you're over asiyas oil, and also you don't pour sediment on Shabbos. But on Mutter you can. On Yontif you can. Now, what if it got suspended on Shabbos or on Yontif? what's the din? On Rav Yosef Tola Chayv Chatas. You know what? You violated binyan, which is awesome in the Torah. You Chayv Chatas. Freight Abai, Omelei Abai, Alamiata Tola Kuza B'Seit L'Chadamin M'Chayv. You're going to hang a jug on a wall. Let's say it's a nail that's hanging on a wall. You hang a jug there. You're going to say that you're going to be Chayv Chatas, and Abai seems to think that suspending this wine thing should be treated like hanging a kli. So Elam Rabbayim Rabbanani. It's not a doraisa. It's only a rabbinic prohibition. Okay. There any questions, comments?
Can you force a goy? Can you force a goy to be Kabul mitzvahs of Isha? He doesn't want to. How can you force him to do it?
No, an Evet Kanani.
I know. How can you force the Kanais to do it? Can he Mechal Shabbos? How can you do it?
No, an Evet Kanani
He's an Evet.
has the dinim. He's not treated. He's this hybrid between a goy and a Jew. He's an Evet
No,
Kanani.
I know, but a Evet Kanani, you win, you capture him in a war. It becomes an Evet. How can you force him to be Makabel the mitzvahs?
If he's not willing, he doesn't become an Evet Kanani.
Oh,
He
so
becomes
this is all
just
willingly.
he's a regular boy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this you don't automatically make him
No.
he doesn't want to, right? This is
Yeah,
we're
he has
talking
to
about where he
have.
wants to.
First of all, he has to agree to circumcision. You can't force